Up until high school, I think I never made conscious decisions for myself. Ever. It never occurred to me to do so. I just followed the authority figures around me, my parents, teachers. All of them seemed to know the best and to have the best intentions for me, so why not? It seemed completely fine. And I didn't have much going on in my brain, anyways. I was enjoying life, letting the adults deal with it. All was perfectly well. My success in school was above average. My mom cared a good deal about my academic success and was regularly comparing me to my peers, which wasn't extreme or traumatic at all, but there was definitely an external pressure that pushed me to sustain the success to keep my mother's level of contentment as high as possible. I love her, and she's amazing, but it is what it is. When it comes to inner motivation, I truly had no ambition or competitive feelings to succeed in classes. So the two main reasons of my success were the guidance of my mom and my willing submission to it. One of which was to go through an unexpectedly drastic change when I got into high school. During the beginning of high school, the first Epiphany happened. Like an unexpected divine inspiration, I suddenly discovered that I had a will of my own. I could choose to do or not to do things, regardless of the consequences being good or bad. I actually had the option of not listening to the classes, or not studying subjects that bored me to death, or spending my time doing whatever I wanted to do, even the night before an exam, or getting bad grades. A door opened to me that I never knew the existence of. It was pure liberation. Maybe the best metaphor for describing my feelings at that time would be a toddler suddenly waking up in the body of an adult, amazed at the endless possibilities that presented itself to her, not knowing where to start. Don't tell me I discovered this very basic fact too late. I have friends in their mid-20s that seem to still have no idea of their free will. I had a quite mild temper as a teenager, so this dangerous discovery did not turn out to be a nightmare for my parents. It was just a realization I started to experiment with, little by little, which didn't get close to anything like a rebellion. Not until my last year. It was my last year in high school. Here, senior high schoolers around the country are expected to participate in a national examination, which is to evaluate their scores and place them accordingly to the best university they can manage to get in. No need to get into details about the universal stuff like how there are top universities and popular faculties people almost worship as the saviors and the only means to a good life, and people who get into them are revered as the chosen ones. We have them too. If you achieve a combination of them, your life is saved, and you have proven to everyone that you are officially a bright human being. The divine education system uprooted the fact that you are better than the 90% of your peers. Make sure to put it in your CV and all your social media profiles so that people know their place when they talk to you. The reality of the situation was this, and my mom was a part of this cult, but it felt like everyone was a part of it, so maybe I just called the whole society a cult. Not gonna take it back. Meanwhile, in my world, I was someplace else. The examination at the end of the year seemed hardly to be of any significance compared to what I had going on in my mind. I was just seeing into the situation I have always been in. It was like small portions of comprehension that were supposed to develop over time were all occurring in my mind at once. What were we doing here? What was the purpose in doing all this? We were being held captive, which wouldn't be an exaggeration, around 7 hours a day, forced both physically and mentally to dedicate ourselves to the memorization of things that 90% of the time I saw no meaning to. Dates and names and regions of wars and pacts in literary works, integral, limit, wave mechanics, inorganic and organic compounds, structure of plants, molecular geometries. I still don't know how to take care of myself as a 24-year-old, but don't worry, I was taught how specific molecules interact with each other, so I should be fine. One time I think I had a mental breakdown while trying to memorize the parts of plants like lateral meristem, root cap, vascular tissue. What on earth? I am looking around with begging eyes at my friends. Surely someone will agree with me on how stupid this is. but everyone is deep into their textbooks. Full focus. Only my best friend shakes his head understandingly before him as well going back to memorizing these magical words, which will somehow prove one's potential as a human being when spelled out correctly on paper in the given time period. Either these guys who came up with this idea were geniuses and I am an idiot for not seeing the wisdom behind it, or this is straight up madness. Yet somehow it felt like I was the only crazy one. What is the education of a human in the most general sense? I'd say it is the act of turning them into better human beings. Well, what makes one person better? In the most general sense, again. Probably a better understanding and display of how to live, think, and be a human, right? And they thought that the ability to draw symbolic molecular interactions on paper definitely came prior to developing a strong understanding of what morality is, why humans need it, and how to embody it in our lives. Okay, first draw how a molecule of ethanol and a molecule of acetic acid interact with each other. Then we can maybe look into why you don't understand the reason we should respect other people and their differences, which seems kinda low priority. To be honest, some of the stuff was not that bad, like learning about the general concept of photosynthesis, how plants have a system to feed themselves through that. That was interesting, but I swear 2 or 3 sentences that gave the main idea would suffice. Why did you have to make me memorize all the names of the steps and their microscopic details and turn it into a tutorial on how to photosynthesis, like I might need all that information in case I wanted to try it out myself one day? Yeah, I can already feel this knowledge transforming me into a more developed human being. I woke up to the truth that the authority I assumed to know best was nuts. I started to ask the questions that mattered, reflect upon them so that I could re-navigate myself, since I refused now to continue the default route I was put on. Is there a purpose or a meaning to life? 18 years of professional living experience, and never occurred to you to ask that, of course. What is the purpose if there is one? What is my purpose? What do I want? Shortly, all the questions to be asked during an examination year everyone views as being indicative of your future's quality. But I was lost in my head, stuck in that symbolic dimension of abstractions I couldn't translate into neither words nor actions. I was paralyzed by this brutal epiphany, not talking about it, not acting about it, just sat with it. Numb. I was really doing nothing. In my head it was over. I was done with it. I had quit the game. And I had no idea what I was to do now. My poor mom, having no idea what was going on, would have to beg almost every day to make me go to school, where I would usually hide in an empty conference hall throughout the day until I could go back home. That conference hall was underground, and there were tiny windows on top of the walls. You could see the ground. It kind of resembled a prison, really, now that I think of it. Something I just noticed and wanted to point out. I recognized how ignorant I was for someone who went through more than a decade of education. I noticed everything valuable that contributed to my being a better human compared to my past self was things I gained through my own interests I managed to focus on when I found time and energy from the education system. I think all the philosophical insights I gained from my discussions with my father, from books, movies, experimenting with ways of expression, practicing art as I felt like it, discovering myriad forms of storytelling, all these things I thought to be my escapes from education were the rare and lucky moments I was actually being educated on how to be a human. I took the exam, failed successfully. Mom didn't take it very well. I said I was done with this and would rather try to figure life out in other ways. There were certainly other ways. They asked me to tell them one, and I couldn't. So both sides made their compromises. They gave up on the hope of me studying something cool, such as computer engineering.
A basic language subject would do it, which meant less effort and memorization for me. But it had to be in a revered university of my mother's choice. And next year I got into that university. Now I am in my last year in that university. You know what I did in this department for 4 years? Ironically, I mused upon philosophical ideas, read books and watched movies, shared my reflections with my dad and exchanged ideas for hours, explored ways of expressing myself, and improved my language skills continuously. I survived and flourished in this place, from which I had no expectations at the very beginning, other than its function of keeping my mom proud and satisfied. I know that she didn't make me go there because of the same reasons I came to love it, but I'm truly thankful to her nevertheless. Here, questioning life and the nature of being a human is what they expect me to do, not something they see to be madness or judge me for doing. I still haven't figured out much, but I have been exploring freely with confidence among people who also acknowledge these to be the real things. This has been a place that I can say to have truly educated me. And I ended up here thanks to the things I did despite of the education system. I came to the conclusion that I am my responsibility, and nobody is obligated to know what I want to become, leave aside making me into what I want to become, not even my parents. But I think I wouldn't be wrong in asking that at least they didn't claim to do that, and not only waste my time and energy for years behind this claim, but also become an actual hindrance in the way of my own efforts for achieving it. What a collective deception. Although almost 6 years has passed since this epiphany, thinking about that time still makes my eyes tear up. I know this has ended for me, but it is going on for different people every single year. And I would really, really like to do something to change this. If you are a high school student and relate to my story, I feel you. No matter how you choose to make your way through this system, know that it lacks the capacity to see you as a whole. It strips away your complexity. Because why bother exploring each and every individual in their whole complexity and get a healthy idea of their potential when we can simply erase all of them to better memorize the most information and recall it the fastest? Just make sure these information don't nourish their souls. That would be unpleasant.